Good morning, Red Foxes, and happy Easter Sunday. Here with a quick recap of yesterday's racing with Holy Cross and Temple and BU and Hobart. Um, this year marked the 10th edition of this race for us. It started as Marist joining in with Holy Cross and Georgetown in their annual duel. And over the years, the race has moved around a little bit. It used to be down on Lake Carnegie. And different teams have come and gone at various points. Georgetown was a regular fixture. We had Columbia join us for a year. And we have in recent years added BU and Temple, and then Hobart, who joined us last year for the first time. For me, the race is probably one of the most important, if not the most important, dual regular season race that we have. The main reason being that it provides some really serious cross conference matchups for us, and I think that when you look back at the years that the men have qualified for the IRA, that this race and the performance at this race has always been a major component of qualifying. And so I think in particular the matchup with Holy Cross is really important. And matchup with Temple is important. Hobart we see at our championship anyway. And so, that matchup is less important from like creating a margin with that team. Since whatever we do later in the season will kind of trump that result. But I do think that it's a great matchup in terms of the speed of the two teams. Historically, the competitiveness there has been very high. The teams have traded wins and losses a lot of years, and that's going to continue to be a really great rivalry for Marist. This year's race, we started out with the varsity 8. The varsity had I would say an okay start. I don't think it was their best. We were down by maybe 4 seats on the field after the first 500, and then the race kind of progressed from there. Temple and BU got into a serious dogfight at the front of the pack. BU, I think, comes into this race as the presumed favorite. And so kudos to Temple for, stepping out and going after them. That was really cool to see at the front of the pack. I think Holy Cross was really looking for a great matchup with Temple, and they tried to hang with Temple, but I don't think they started as aggressively, and then it kind of became that Temple went with BU and forced BU's hand, and Holy Cross wasn't able to hang with those two down the stretch. Hobart was kind of in a no man's land. They were clearly ahead of Marist, but clearly behind the other two. And as we got into the body of the piece, it felt like Hobart basically got a length up on Marist and just kind of hung there. And Marist in our part, basically got a length down on Hobart and hung in that position as well. Not in my opinion our best piece. I'm convinced there's more in this boat. I feel like we've seen more in practice. There's a mental side to this game, and I think that one of the things that's happening right now is we're very young. In the varsity 8, we had 4 freshmen in the boat yesterday and 3 sophomores. Sorry. So Um, these gentlemen are still learning and understanding what these matchups look like, what they mean, and the kind of racing and fitness that is going to be required to win. And, in comparison to just give you an example, we learned yesterday that Holy Cross has 17 seniors on their squad this year. And that comes with a lot of experience, a lot of maturity in the way that they approach the sport, the training, the racing. And so we're learning, and we're learning fast. I think it's hard. It's hard when your freshmen are forced to learn those lessons in the top boat where the metal meets the meat. But I felt like we could have done better yesterday. In particular, I think we could have dug in and hung with Hobart a little bit better in the back half of the race. I think we could have put in a better sprint to finish the race. I think that my goal would be for our boats to show a little bit more of that Marist signature pluck or spark, and to put up a little bit more fight. And so, we're talking about that. We talked about it after the race yesterday, and I think that it's a tough position for the boat to be in its current ranking and position, and where we are in the men's rowing collegiate community. But as a program, we need to do better, and I think you saw that in the results yesterday. So we finished that race. Marist VA was about 6 seconds behind Hobart. The second varsity was probably our toughest race of the day. BU walked away early and took a giant win. Temple hung behind them. It was a little bit of a parade by the end of that race. No one was really close to anyone. Everyone beat the next boat up by a length or two. But our 2V got pushed out early, and then it basically looked like just gave up. And that was something that I was pretty upset about. This was, I think, our worst race of the day. And disappointing, because I think, again, that our second varsity had a fantastic race with Bates last weekend. Had a really great, fantastic race with MIT's 2V. And so we've seen significantly better fight from that boat, both at home and on the race course so far this season. And for whatever reason, yesterday, it just didn't come together. And so, we're going to be talking about that this week. But I think one of the things that happens in that crew is that if we're able to get a couple seats even of a lead in the early going of a race, the crew is really able to relax and row long. And when they aren't, we get a little tight and we get a little bit frantic, and the boat just doesn't come together as well. And so we're going to be working on, how do we row with good composure even when we're down. I think that's a kind of a key trait that we're going to have to try to build. The third varsity, I thought, was probably one of our best races of the day. The 3V got walked out early, just like in the other two races. BU took off even more in this race. I think in the early going, it was a little bit closer with the other crews. Holy Cross was probably last after the first 300 meters or so. They had a little bit slower start, but their boat just kind of set into this really long, powerful rhythm, and they slowly walked through everybody else. They got into a nice little fight with Hobart's 3V, who kind of went with them, and the two of them got into a nice little duel behind BU, and they walked away from Temple. Temple got probably 8 or 9 seats up on Marist, and then Marist hung in that position for most of the race. Um, the 3V, the Marist 3V, made it an exciting race at the end. They, with about 500, 600 meters to go, stepped up the rate, started really hammering, pushing on Temple, and ended up walking all the way back through Temple, and almost passed them by the line. It was a 1 second difference, which is about 3 seats, or a deck and a seat, at the finish line, that Temple beat Marist by. So it was cool to see that fight in that boat, the unwillingness to give up, unwillingness to be satisfied with that result. I think that is more of the fight that we want to see from the coach's standpoint, and kind of from that like subjective view of the race, and so we were pumped to see that. Props to the 3V guys for hanging in there for a hard fought win, or a hard fought, even if it's a loss, hard fought loss. I think that was fun to see them push back a little bit. The 4V had a tough week, a very tough week. They had a whole string of bad rows leading up to Friday. And Friday, we had a little chat with them on the water, and it seemed like they kind of turned a corner a little bit. They stepped out and had a good race. The 4V race was just us and Holy Cross and Hobart. By the 500 meter mark, it had already gotten really strung out. Holy Cross's 4V walked well away from Marist, and Marist walked well away from Hobart. And so it ended up just being a little bit of a parade in that race. But I think the 4V had a clean start, rode with decent rhythm, and showed that they had some better rowing in there than what we had seen during the week. And so it's cool to see them turn it around and have a decent row, and make something out of it. And they were the only boat of the day that was able to beat a crew in Hobart, so that was cool to see as well. So that was this week. A tough week, from the coach's standpoint, especially with BU in this race now, and at least where Marist is at right now as a crew. It's obviously not a race that we are thinking of winning, but one of the things we talk to with the athletes is the margins at these races are important. They're important for rankings. They're important for us pushing ourselves and going to the next level. And so, I think this is a race we'll look back on as we prepare with this young crew for what do we want to accomplish next year? How do we close down these margins, not just with Hobart, but with the other two crews as well, with Holy Cross and Temple, and and push ourselves to be on that level. I think it's a little bit easier for the coaches to understand that that's possible, because we've been there before. We've been to this race before and won it. Props to 2019, class of 2019 crew that won this race over Georgetown Holy Cross. And we also have had years that we didn't win it, but had a great race, a race that set us up for IRA qualification, like in 2018, 2022, and so on. And so I think as a crew, we need to look at this event as one. This is a race that we belong at. These crews are not beyond our level. We are young right now, and we're building. But I think starting next year, the crew should be looking at this event as one where we need to step up and do better. The next race next weekend is the Spring Mets Regatta, which is down in New Rochelle, New York. It's hosted by Iona. We're going to face Iona and Fairfield, and then Colgate is going to join us. And then there are a number of other smaller programs and some clubs from the general New York City metropolitan area that will all be there, including the Vassar crew, who just won the New York State champs this weekend. So props to them, our neighbors here on the Hudson, who are doing a great job with their varsity 8. So it's shaping up to be a good weekend down there, competition-wise, and that will be a race that Marist is looking for a win emphatically. I think we have the bodies to do it. I think we have the right athletes in our crew, and we need to prepare this week the right way and go deliver our best result down there on the lagoon in New Rochelle. We will be entered in a whole series of events down there, but there will be 3 8s races and 3 4s races against a variety of crews in New Rochelle. And then there was one other announcement I wanted to make this week that we've been working on over the last couple of months, but we wanted to make sure that our ducks were all in a row before we announce to our alumni and families. Marist is going to be part of a conference realignment in 2026 for men's rowing. Essentially what is happening is that the NIRC regatta, which has been our championship regatta for I think a little over 20 years now, that event is no longer going to be allowing Division I collegiate entries. And so that means that Marist and MIT and Hobart and any other D1s who are in attendance at the NIRC are no longer going to be racing there beginning in 2026. Along with that realignment, all of those schools that used to go to the NIRC will now be competing at the Dadvale Regatta as our conference championship. The Dadvale Regatta, excuse me, has expanded or will be granted an additional automatic qualifying spot. Essentially, the AQ from the NIRC will transition over and become part of the Dadvale Regatta. And so Dadvales will have 4 AQs available for all of the D1s that are there. And there will also be at the same time a reduction in the number of AQs on the West Coast. And so that is going to increase by 1 the number of at-large bids that are available for IRA selection. So what does all this mean? Well, in my opinion, and we've talked a lot with the IRA and various stakeholders, I actually think it's a fantastic opportunity for Marist. The athletes who've been on the team kind of in the last 10 years or so will understand that there is always a little bit of kind of gamesmanship in the season of different crews having different resumes and who your cross-conference opponents are. And I have been a big proponent for a long time of trying to get more of the Division I teams all together in one place for our championship so that there is less gamesmanship and more just hard race results to determine who gets the bids for the IRA. This move will effectively put all of the East Coast Division I's on one start line at the end of the season, other than the Eastern Sprints League. And so I think that's an exciting thing for us. I think it's exciting that there's going to be 4 AQs on the table, where we used to only be competing for 1. I think it's exciting that the pool of at-large bids is going to increase by 1. Those of you in the know will know that Marist, the last 2 times that we've qualified for the IRA, we've qualified with an at-large entry. So I think that those are important as well. So it's a good move. That's going to be happening next year. In preparation for that, and because our crew is so young this year, Coach Stratton and I and Tom and our sports administrative staff talked a lot about how do we prepare ourselves best for this move and set ourselves up for future success at that regatta. Part of the challenge at Dad Vales is that the qualifying racing series, or the first race in that series, is a time trial, which is not a super normal thing that we see during the regular season. And so it's something that you kind of want to practice a little bit. And so we decided that given where our crew was at this year, our performance level, and where we think we'll end up in this postseason, that we felt it would be a good idea to take advantage of a year ahead of time going down and racing the Dad Vale this year as well. So Marist has entered the Dad Vale for 2025. We will be doing the NIRC regatta as well. Class of 2019 is quaking in their boots right now, because the last time we did this double race, it was a really rough weekend for us. We have made arrangements for it to be better run, better organized, learning from our mistakes from that year in how we prepare for the event. For instance, we'll be using some team vans for transportation of the athletes for that event instead of the bus, which, as those who were there last time will remember, was somewhat of a debacle. And so we're adding that race to the calendar. It's the dates are May 9th and 10th, Friday and Saturday. And then the NIRC regatta will be that Sunday following the race. So it'll be a tough weekend, but Coach Stratton and I feel like there will be significant value in adding that race to the calendar to get more experience for this boat. We're going to be bringing both the varsity and second varsity 8s to Dad Vale, and we feel that sets the crew up with a better understanding of what that race looks like, how the progression looks, understanding who the competition is and what they look like at that event, and then preparing us to do well at that regatta in the future. And that's our plan for the next couple of weeks here. We'll be back at you very soon, and we'll bring you some more information about the race next week. We are going to be specifically honoring Stan Bicchetti next week, who recently passed this year. And thanks to everyone who attended yesterday. We once again had an awesome parents crew with a great tent set up, and kept everyone fed and happy. And we are off to Easter. So we hope all our families have a great long weekend, and we'll see you when we jump back into racing next week. Go Red Foxes.